Okay, yeah, hello everyone one more time. Uh, I am product owner right now in company SoftwareOne. Before I was working in Samsung Research Russia, and we also managed many AI projects. And this presentation is based mostly on the my experience in Samsung, but I will implement some new ideas here. Let's start, but before we start, uh, yeah, I want to explain how I see the AI development process. So I divide it into 3 steps. First step is planning, second step is data processing, and third is training. Step 1, planning. Yeah, we all know that it's a part of every project, not only AI, it's definition of what we're going to do. It's our requirements, we set up our goals of what we are expecting to see. We discuss it with business parts usually, or we try to understand how our customers will benefit from our models. This step 1 is all about planning, and we usually use some classic approaches for planning. The second part is data processing. So when we defined what we have, when we defined which data do we have to collect data from all the possible sources that we are having in our company. Then we have to prepare it, process, delete some trash, add some new samples maybe. Then we have to analyze how good is our data right now. After that, we are in iteration process. We can go back on one step to have some more trash here and to delete it more, for example, or we can analyze it and understand that we need more data to collect, and when we can go back. So you see there are many iteration on this step and many versions of data on this step. Then when we are finished with the data preparation, we're going to step 3, training. So you can see that this one is the biggest one on the picture, but actually data processing takes 80% of the time of development, and only 20 goes to training step. So anyway, when we're finished with data, we decide which data model we are going to use. Like maybe we decide the neural network architecture, prepare the code, then we train our model, then we evaluate the model, hypertune. There is another cycles here, and here you can have like 1 million cycles. There is no limitations to these cycles. And then you have to test your model and see if for example, your scores and metrics are okay. You can go to production, and if it's not, maybe you have to work more with the data. After the production step, you can also analyze the results, monitor your model, and go back to define step to understand what do we need more. Maybe we need more features, or maybe we need to collect some new data. So as you can see, this process is also iterative, and it looks kind of like we can implement agile here, right? So the process is huge, and there are many things to track, right? Like data versions and trainings, and it's crazy how much information is inside this process. So how can we manage it, and which mistakes do we do when we manage this process? So let's go to the step 1, planning. Mistake number 1 on this step is personal decisions over teamwork. I know that might sounds tricky, but how many times did you hear any of that from your data scientist or your team members if you're working as a data scientist? I take notes for myself with metrics, for example, or with tasks. I memorize my tasks. I will write it down on paper. We will discuss our task orally, or we track our task in Telegram or Slack or any other messenger. It's not bad, you know, I'm not saying that this is bad, but when you do only this, it's not a teamwork. It's your personal tracking. So why is it a mistake? Because it's just easy to lose or to forget. You cannot just memorize your task. Even if you have only one task, you don't have to memorize it. It has to be tracked somewhere. Because if there is no tracking of your task, there is no responsibility for those task tracking. Like, you can give a task to your engineer and he will not do it because he just forget about it. And finally, it's just not professional. I know you might think that this mistake is obvious and nobody does that. No, everybody, like many people who I worked with, they do exactly this mistake. They never track their task because sometimes they say that their team is just too small to track tasks. No, it's not an excuse. Everybody should do some planning before do anything. So how can we decide and what can we do with this mistake? What is the solution? So of course, like, what we can do is to implement some tools, open source tools, or maybe commercial tools to organize tasks, implement some wiki for information sharing and other communication. Like, for example, we can use Jira for tasks and Confluence as wiki, or there is other suitable tools like Azure DevOps, where you can track the task, and they also have wiki inside of this. You can track here also sprints if you're using Scrum. There are some just task tracking like Miro, ClickUp. You can find many more in Google search, but here is the list of what I tried, and it's pretty good. Also, before you are using any tools, you have to establish the process. Use Kanban, Scrum, TDSP, or Lean methodologies for process establishment, where every person in team knows what is the next step of the development. Because when it's not officially established, there might be a lot of chaos around it. So the main requirement for planning stage to be reproducible and to not doing any mistakes is all team members should understand the whole process and have access to the current list of task requirements and useful documents. So please keep it in mind. You have to think about it. Next step is data processing. Data processing, as I told you, is one of the biggest steps when it comes to the time. What is the problem here? What is the mistake that everybody do? It's house with data sets. Many people do not track data sets versions at all, and it distributed in random storages. Like one data set can be distributed in one PC on one team member and another one to another team member. This is just not right, because, for example, which mistakes can be in your team? Like, for example, you are having a lot of data and you are working with the data versions, and you don't track which samples did you include it to the next step or which samples did you delete it. And sometimes when you work with the data, it's hard to control all of it, especially manually, because some people try to versionize the data sets somewhere in like folders, for example, like saving CSV as version number 1, version number 2, number 3, and so on. It's just hard, and it's hard. It's easy to forget what was the last version you were working with, and it makes more chaos to the process. Another common mistake is local dataset storage PC for your team members. If it's stored only your PC, it's hard to share the same version of the data you've been working with other team members, so they cannot work with the data, and maybe your data was like the best for this model. Sometimes we also have the case where we have data duplication, which leads to lack of memory. What is data duplication? It's not that bad for the data versioning, but it's bad exactly for the memory usage, and it's, you know, sometimes takes a lot of money to buy some new memory. So data duplication, it's well done with the tools that I will describe you later, like on this slide. So what is the solutions for the data sets management. Use special tools like DVC or at least Git LFS for automatic versions control. DVC is really a great tool. I would recommend it to everyone. It suits almost to everyone. Like, it doesn't matter which data do you work with. It can be pictures, numeric data, like even videos. So this is a tool that will be described in other sessions here in this conference. Please pay attention to those talks. I will not tell you that much about it because it's not my topic, but please watch other videos. It will be very useful and you will thank me if you've never heard about this tool before. So another solution for those who work with local storage, yeah, I know you cannot copy all of the results that you're working with. Like, you can work with a data set and change it every 5 minutes, and you just can't upload every version to everybody. It's okay, just work with it, but when you got a final results that you want to train on, please share it with your colleagues to a public place. So main requirement for data sets management is all team members should have access to all versions of data to improve reproducibility. Please pay attention to it when you're making your own process. Let's go to the step 3 is experiments tracking. Of course, mistake number 3 is lack of experiments tracking, which leads to risk to lose good models parameters and no visualization at all. It kind of sounds like same problem as mistake number 1, because when you manually track experiments, for example, in the notes, like here on the first figure, you're kind of living in your personal world. You're working on your experiment by your own, and you're taking your notes or you're taking your papers, which is hard to share, and it's impossible to share during COVID. You cannot just take pictures and send to your colleagues. It's kind of stupid, and it's also not professional, but people really do this, and this is really not professional. Okay, it's you can do this if you're working in the not working, but if you're in the university making some projects, it's okay. You don't have to be that professional. But when you're working for a company which gives you money, it's not like this. Another example is some people track experiments in Excel files or CSV or some Word documents. It's better than not tracking at all, but it's a lot of risks that you will forget to track some results or you will make some mistakes. You know, it's a human factor that you will add some additional zeros where there is no zeros, and the results will be completely different. Also, even when you do this and this, it's hard to compare experiments between each other because there will be problems with visualization. You cannot make any plots to compare the experiments or any diagrams for easy understanding and for showing your management. So all of this leads to no common source for checking the experiments for each team member, which leads to low reproducibility, which leads to time-consuming development. And you know, time is money for a company. And if you want to save money for your company, then please consider to implement experiments tracking systems. I know this solution sounds simple, but many people never heard about any solutions that I will tell you about in few minutes. So just as an example, there are plenty of tools, open source tools like Emmaflow and Omniboard and Sacred and some others. There are some commercial tools like Neptune and Weights and Biases. It's very, very easy to implement. So if you're working with a code, you probably heard about pip install. So for Emmaflow, just pip install Emmaflow, and it's already on your PC or on your local server. And it just takes few lines in your code to log some new metrics. So this tool will help you to save all metrics and then visualize it. So main requirement for the experiments tracking is all team members should have access to all experiments results. executed by everybody. And the results should be stored on the team server, not on the members' PCs. And let's talk more about the tools. I told you about Emmaflow. Maybe not many people understand how it looks like, how the tracking systems looks like. See, it's very easy to understand. Each line is an experiment. You can see the date when it was made. There are some users. Usually, it's just an example, but here will be real team members, the source of the experiment, version of the experiment with all the parameters that were as an input, and all the metrics that we have in the results. The metrics are visualized, as you can see, as a diagram. That's also great. You can compare experiments just watching those squares with a light blue color. I think it's one of the best ways to do your development, especially if you're working in a big company and in a big team. You can check who is doing which job, and if you see that some metrics are better, like the best in the team, you can consult with the person who made those experiments and start to work exactly on this setup with these parameters. So the results will be faster to get. And as I told you, many people never heard about any of the tools that I'm talking about right now. I even made this survey where I asked 50 data scientists who work with various fields of data science and AI. They work with pictures processing, they work with numeric data and text data. So yeah, the most popular tools that everybody heard about is TensorBoard, but TensorBoard from Google, it makes a visualization, but it's so heavy, and it's so slow that it's actually really time consuming. Many people said that they heard, see, the yellow is too heard but never used, heard the example Emmaflow but never used this, which is like weak point for everybody, and many people never heard. See, the one is a green blue number. It's for those who never heard about the tools. I've listed some tools that I found in the internet that work with experiment tracking, but nobody heard about this, and nobody actually use it. So that's why I'm trying to promote those tools, even though I'm not working for those tools. I don't contribute open source to any of those tools, unlike the speakers that we have on this conference. Please also pay attention to those talks. Let's see some features of the tools that I mentioned on the previous slide. I prepared this report for everybody. You can watch it later because it's just too much information, and I cannot provide you with perfect solution of the tool setup for your project, but I can show you some possibilities and best practices. As you can see, I've listed here some open source tools. They are for free, of course, and you can use it already. They have many updates each month, so they are developing. There are some commercial tools. Yeah, they are not cheap, but they have more features included, and they have some demonstration on their website, so you can go Google those tools and try it by yourself. It's really easy. They have open servers and sandboxes. You can play with the data as you want. It's really great to understand what's going on there, and those tools are pretty cool. I've tried Neptune, and it was really pretty cool. So as I told you, I can provide you with some possible combinations. For example, DVC and Emmaflow, DVC for data management and Emmaflow for experiment tracking. Another possible combination is DVC plus subgrid Omniboard, same purpose. It's just which one to choose, I don't know. Just some people like this and some people like this. You have to try it by yourself with your team. So one of the best practices that one of my teams working with is they use Jira and Confluence for step 1 planning. They use Jira for task tracking and Confluence for information sharing. There they store not only the requirements for the project, we also put there some interesting links to our to the scientific papers, for example, and some other things that might be useful in the project. It should not be only requirements or only goals of that project. We use DVC for data processing and data management. I already told you it's a great tool because it has some features that are very useful when it comes to data. For code preparation and code versioning, we use GitHub, also possible GitLab. It doesn't matter, it's just code versioning. I think most people already use it. And for this cycle with many metrics and parameters, we use Segrid and Omniboard. Segrid is part of this tool which store information in MongoDB in NoSQL format. So if you're aware with the MongoDB, it might be more interesting for you. Omniboard is a board which visualizes all the experiments where you can compare it and you can draw the plots inside this board. It's really cool. Just try it if you have never done this before. Before I will finish my talk, I want to remind you that there is a mistake number 0, which is lack of information sharing. You can do all of the steps and you can implement all the solutions that I told you about before. But if you're not sharing information with your colleagues, it will lead to more time-consuming things. So how to avoid mistake number 0 is, of course, organize more meetings and stand-ups. If it comes to team stand-up, it's 3 times a week. For example, just a good example that we use, 1-2 minutes per each member. Doesn't take much time, but everybody knows what they're working on. Everybody can help each other with the issues, and it's just great. Another thing is don't forget to share updates with the stakeholders. If you're a manager, you probably heard about the stakeholder matrix, which is drawn here. You have to understand who are your stakeholders. Is it business parts? Is it your manager, line manager? Is it like some PR team or other industry competitors even? You have to list all the stakeholders who are interested in your project, and then you have to put it inside this matrix, and you have to understand which one you should manage closely and share most updates with them, which people should be kept satisfied, which people you should keep informed, and which people you don't have to pay that much attention. If you're interested, it's also not a topic for today, but please Google it. It's a good tool for managers. So the last thing I want to give to you is you can find your mistakes. Actually, yesterday, Julia made a kind of similar talk. She provided with a link where you can analyze what is the maturity of your process. Here are some questions to you of each step. Like, for example, all tasks are assigned to each member. You have to check it with yes, no, and partly yes. Then when you're done, you have to analyze how many points do you have. And based on those points, you have to understand what is the level of maturity of your process. Yeah, so I hope this presentation will be shared with everybody, so you can just take it, for example, tomorrow or any other convenient time to check out if your team worked good or not. Maybe those questions will be useful for you. So it's just a checklist, a small test. Hope it will be useful. I will remind you one more time, why do we implement all of these things? Because, yeah, more automation is less manual work, less human risks. And it's a great possibility to reproduce and compare experiments. And, when we do not track experiments, it's hard to reproduce. And when it's hard to reproduce, it takes a lot of time to start any development once again, and it takes more and more money from your company, which is not great. Also, important is comfortable development process, because you work with this every day and you don't have to be mad at your managers when you're working. Faster commercialization cycle. I think I explained this one before. And easy communication between team members is also always a plus, because you're working with those people every day. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please put it in chat. Here is my email. It's personal, not my working email. If you have any questions about this talk or about AI development process, or if you need any help, please contact me. I'm okay with that. Thank you.